Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hey Wolves fans, it is me, Chris, and with me as always is Will. Hey Will.
Hello, how are we?
Living the dream. It's not sure what kind of dream, but we're living it, and that is one of my go-tos. And we are recording this shortly after the home game to Crystal Palace, so hence the tone of my voice is probably not too thrilling right now, because we are going to be giving our immediate responses and thoughts to today's game, and we almost spoke about it like off air, and then decided no, let's wait and let's just go at it here.
Yeah, we'll see where it takes us. I think there's certainly a lot to unpack.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, obviously, first things first, I guess we will jump on the lineups first, but by now I'm sure everyone who listens will be well aware. Obviously, we didn't get a win, the final result being 2-2. I think I actually put that in my possible predictions when we spoke to the Crystal Palace team in our pre-match crossover, because I agreed with them that it could be a 2-2 draw, because I saw goals in it and I said neither side could defend. So sadly, dreams come true.
Yeah, no, you certainly weren't wrong.
No. However, before we get there, Will, I mean, we saw the starting lineup announced obviously beforehand, and I think, I don't know, did you expect, we spoke about the fact that I was hopeful that Sarabia would come in. He did indeed come into the starting lineup, and it was, I thought he would go with a straight back four. We saw kind of a lineup that allowed him to shift between essentially the three at the back and four. Like it was because you had Aït-Nouri, you had Toti Gomez and everyone all playing, but I think the way it was laid out allowed them to be a bit more fluid.
Yeah, I certainly didn't expect it to be the back five that it was on paper. I was pleased when it was. You mentioned there Sarabia coming in, which I was pleased, but goodness me, was I wrong. He was shocking, unfortunately. I think he missed. There was two chances come to mind. I wouldn't say he should have scored, but I think of it if it was Jota a few years ago in that position, it's the kind of chances that those top players would have put away.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't know if he was necessarily shocking.
I think so. I just think he was poor.
Yeah, I think once again, once again he gets himself in some great positions. Like you can't argue with that. It's just sometimes that. Then again, that's probably why he's with us and not someone else. You know, he gets these pockets of space and gets into good runs. Like he finds the space and finds the moment, which is why he's being played into some really great opportunities.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But yeah, not able to finish it.
I just think it wasn't the game for him, which is annoying because it's what I mentioned before. You know, he's perhaps not the player that you need when you're fighting in these must-win relegation sort of battles, even this early on in the season. But he does obviously possess quality. But I just don't. I mean, it didn't work. Long story short, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I think there were quite a few player selections that didn't work.
Yeah, I mean the first half, to be honest, I thought was an odd one because, I mean, I don't think we had a single shot on goal in the entire first half when I was looking at the stats, because whilst we had moments of threat in terms of the ball going into the box in dangerous positions, no one ever was able to get onto the end of them. There was a lot where Larson was stretching, Sarabia didn't get the finishing touch, or whoever it was coming onto the end of it. There was lots of kind of hopeful moments, but there was no actual shots on target. Like the keeper was not actually really worked at any point, apart from that one moment where he came out and blocked Sarabia before he could get a shot.
Which is one of the moments I was on about, I think, from Sarabia. I think he bottled it, to be honest. Maybe that's harsh of me. But
because it looked like he was trying to let the ball come across him in the hope he could take it round the keeper.
But
that's what I took from it. He was hoping it would just like bounce almost past him so he could either get the penalty or draw it around him, but it didn't work out.
Yeah, I think it was embarrassing when he started claiming for a penalty. I just wanted him, come on, just get up. But it was funny because everyone around me afterwards, obviously you have the whole crowd go and a big moan and a sort of complaints, but everyone around me was saying the same thing of, why didn't he chip it? Because that's what you thought he was going to do until he let it run across. But yeah, look, it's one of many instances that we could dwell on, which I'm conscious of us not doing so because, I mean, as you alluded to in your intro, the mood around the Wolves camp isn't exactly the jolliest it's ever been.
No, and so I'm torn over kind of where to go from here. But basically, for me, the first half felt kind of lackluster in terms of it.
Yeah.
It felt very much how it's been all season.
Mm-hmm.
We were kind of giving the ball away cheaply at times, letting Palace had a load more threat and chances than us. Loads, they had various shots on goal. Sarr was having to work. It just felt at points like, once again, there was a few last ditch, like Dawson made a brilliant block at one point.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah,
and it was very much whilst I don't know if the stats will show it, it felt like it was one-way traffic.
I think, what I think? I don't disagree. And this isn't.
I mean, in terms of cutting edge.
Yeah. This isn't just for the first half, and this isn't just for the cutting edge. I think the game as a whole. I'm going slightly off topic here. But the first half, I think, epitomizes it with the sort of lack of cutting edge quality that you speak of. I said to my sister coming out of the ground, first of all, we were talking about how, considering it was a game that had 4 goals in and 1 disallowed, it was still a pretty poor game to watch. And there was something about that first half, and I think the night in general, just the sheer amount of empty seats that we saw, and understandably so. A gate of 20,000 people. Both teams, especially Wolves, giving the ball away needlessly and cheaply, and with countless unforced errors throughout. It genuinely felt like, and I hope this makes sense, but it felt like I was watching a championship game. It felt like championship football. Do you know what I mean? With just the flatter atmosphere, less quality, and just more empty seats, as I mentioned. It just, don't know. Yeah.
But I think that's, as I say, partly down to the fact that first half, like I mentioned, we didn't have a shot on goal, and for all the possession that we had, because it was fairly even possession at periods, they felt more threatening, and we were playing it forward, but there was no real threat. And even though the match ended up with, looking at the stats, 19 shots to Palace and 11 to us, there was actually a point shortly after we'd scored our second when the stats read Wolves 3 shots on target, 2 goals. That was like the max, and the last few, all the remaining shots we had when we were trying to get a winner late on. But that's what I mean in terms of there was very little actual in the box action from our perspective.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think that it reminds me of when we were 2-1 up, and just before Palace got their equaliser, my dad said to me, he went, "This is an accident waiting to happen. This defence and just the team in general. Like, you never felt in the same way that going forwards, although we looked all right, there was that lack of cutting edge going forwards. In the opposition box that you speak of, I felt like that energy was the same throughout the team. I just never felt like we were going to be clinical enough and good enough and efficient enough to see out a victory.
So if we go in order, the first goal, What did you make of that? Because Strand Larsen, since I don't know if you've seen his post-match interview, because there was obviously a confusion. I don't know if Saar didn't call or if Larsen hasn't heard him. Saar comes out to take the cross. Larsen effectively flicks it over him because he gets his head on it as it's near Saar's hands, but he's facing away from Saar. And so then Saar is out of position when the opposing player rifles it home. So there was a clear mix up, and Strand Larsen's kind of blaming himself in the interview, saying that's my mistake and blah blah.
I think so. I think it's his mistake. I don't know if you saw this was something I was going to mention, and I noticed it at the time. So when that goal went in, Saar got a bit of stick from fans in the North Bank, and he was giving it back to them. He was pointing, obviously in the vague direction of Larsen, and there was then a sort of back and forth exchange of words between him and Larsen. And I was fully on Saar's side. Well, to an extent, I think he should still be claiming it. As a keeper, I think if you come out to claim ball, you've got to take everything and everyone with you in doing so, because keepers are protected to the end of the earth, which again, I dare say we'll discuss later on. But I don't believe for a second that Saar didn't call for that. Do you know what I mean? Just as a Premier League goalkeeper.
You would hope. I mean, I haven't watched back to see if his mouth is moving or anything, but you would hope that he did. And it seems like he did. The moment the goal went in, he's turned to Larsen immediately. Yeah. That was the first place he turned to because he's clearly not happy.
But the points I do want to make on it is, even if he hasn't called, Larsen knows that he's stood on his goalkeeper's toes by the time it comes to head in a way. Like, surely at that point, you sort of, don't flick it past him. But the main thing, and this is a recurring thing, which happened twice today, happened countless times against Brentford, happened against Chelsea, it's happened loads and loads of times throughout the season, is that when Larsen did flick it on and it went through, there was an unmarked man at the back post from a set piece to easily finish it. And that was the same for their second goal as well, completely unmarked.
Yeah, that's where we were going to get to, because that's the things, again, set pieces have let us down and our own mistakes have let us down. We've essentially gifted them 2 goals. The first one is a miscommunication, whatever way round, between the keeper and Larsen. The second one, watching it back, like in the moment and back, it seems that because Bueno and Dawson seem to go for the same ball and they're all clustered together in the middle. And then I think it's Larsen that actually the guy drifts past. But I'm like, all the central defenders are kind of all clustered, going for the same ball, literally colliding in midair for the same ball. Someone I just feel like there was no need for that.
No, 100%. And as well, I'm not sure on the exact stats, but it's something crazy. Like I think like 10 centre halves have scored against us this season, which obviously for the vast majority is from set pieces. And I don't understand, because the 2 goal scorers for Palace sum that up perfectly. It's 2 of their big centre halves who came up for the set pieces. I just can't wrap my head around how they're unmarked, and I don't know what it comes down to, because a couple of times, like I said, it's happened loads this season. Once or twice you put it down to personal mistakes and individual errors, but surely as a management system and a coaching staff, you have to iron that out. You say, look, last week, lads, completely unmarked and scored against us, set off. Don't let that happen again. And it's happened again and again and again, and then twice today. I can't understand it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So we, as always, set pieces, downfall, our masters of our own destruction with both goals, essentially. Before we go on to kind of our comeback, I should just remind everyone that this podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. Global Sports Podcast Network, every club, every day. Yeah, so we go 2-0 down. No, wait, sorry. My brain is failing.
No, we went
1-0 down. I'm having flashbacks to Brighton in my head. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. But yeah, so at 1-0 down, what did you make of the equalising goal? First of all, Strand Larsen.
I thought Santiago Bueno did unreal to win it and give it. It was a great ball to Cunha, and it was a lovely take by Strand Larsen when he slid it across, just in between the keeper's legs. You know, it was a clever finish. But yeah,
it's similar. It's similar to the week. Was it a week or was it last week or the week before? Bueno again put in a beautiful pass leading up to a goal.
Yes,
and that was the other wing, but similar.
I think that was
maneuver.
the City game, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And so, yeah, he's got that in his bag, in his locker. He seems to have these like raking passes just to,
but they're not,
play people.
And it's the stuff that I've been calling for a while, because it's not just a hoof ball.
No, it's accurate.
It's a good progressive forward pass, and it's clinical and it works. And that's something that I do want to mention now, just because my brain's gone set off on it. And Chris, as you know, these episodes have turned into something of a therapy session for us as Wolves fans, being able to just release our frustrations. And the one that I wanted to pick up on today was the short goal kicks and playing out from the back.
Okay.
I know it's a recurring theme this season, but there was so many times, first half and second half, where it was just putting us under pressure, especially in the first half. And also from our throw-ins. I don't know if you noticed, but when Palace had a throw-in in the defensive half, they took it into their central midfielder who had come short, and whoever it was just booted it up to Mateta. And it didn't always stick, but it got them out of that area of the pitch. And we just couldn't seem to replicate that for love nor money. And that's another thing that was driving me insane, because we didn't do that against City and it worked. I suppose, unfortunately, stats will show that it didn't work in the result. But I think everyone came out of that game relatively pleased. Or at least, could see signs of improvement. And it just seemed like we'd backtracked on all of that. It was like watching us earlier on, and a couple of weeks back towards the start of the season, if you know what I mean. But
yeah, I know what you mean. But the finish from Larsen I thought was lovely, because, like you said, he said in his post-match interview, it felt it's harder when you've got more time to think about it. And he had that moment and I thought for a second it was going to get caught under his feet, because it seemed to take forever for the opportunity to come. And he said he had all those thoughts, but the way he slotted it between the keeper's legs in the end, just like it was. And what I thought in that moment was, or like I was watching it afterwards thinking, given the pressure stakes of this game and being 1-0 down at that point, that was so calm to just slot it away like that. I thought that was, and it shows that he's got so much potential, I think.
I think he really is the real deal. That and he's proved me wrong. If you remember to the first couple of games, I wasn't entirely sold on him.
I was backing him.
I just think as well, though, it goes to show that we need to play to his strengths more, because he clearly has a positive impact. So,
because that was his first shot on goal in the entire game.
Yeah, and that's ridiculous. But I guarantee, and that, like I said, that came from Santiago Bueno, a long ball from your centre half to one of your forwards in behind their defence. It's that simple. And the Gomez goal, it was lovely from Guedes to tee it off to him. But in that football was so direct. To get us into that position. And if that's what's working, I don't get why you wouldn't, tactically set up to play that way more consistently.
Before we dig into the second goal, it's interesting that obviously, we go a goal down, there's a flurry of substitutions, and there was obviously some reactions of like, you don't know what you're doing and all that kind of stuff. And then ironically, we go 2-1 up with the players that come on, some of them involved, like Guedes, who, to be fair, I think we should be seeing more of, because he seems to be sharp. Like, he's looked really sharp when he's come on.
Yeah.
And like you say, for that second goal, he has a beautiful hand in it, and he, again, calm in the box. It's like, just looks up, one touch, boom, back across. And the Gomez finish, I did not expect it. It was just so, like, again, no touch, just
caressed
instant.
it.
Yeah, just caressed it in, and it curves slightly into that near post as well.
Yeah, the one thing I do want to say about the O'Neill things, which was something I was going to pick up on the Sarr argument with Larson, was the Sky cameras when that Gomez goal went in, pan to Sarr. I won't repeat what he was saying to the North Bank or to the fans who'd been given him and the team stick, but he was voicing his opinions back to them, which I'm all for. I don't blame him for a second. He got pelters and arguably wasn't his fault, but also, in the ground, when the substitutions were made, I think the fans were right to question them. I think, don't get me wrong, we made our own luck. And those substitutions were part of it. But as I'll touch on in more detail later on, the Palace goal, if that doesn't get disallowed, much like if the Brighton pass last week was a yard either side, we're not giving any thought to these, any positive thought to these substitutions at least. But the main sub that got the stick was the substitution of taking Doyle off. And I don't want to say rightly so, but I think he'd been head and shoulders above Gomez, who went on to score. So, my point is, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but it could have very easily have gone the other way. But what I didn't like about it, which I've only just seen after the game, I don't know if you've seen, Chris, was O'Neill's reaction to the fans chanting.
I have not, and I've actually been looking for that. I haven't had a chance to watch his post-match either. Normally I try and watch that before we chat. I've only seen Larson's.
Yeah, well, he was seen to be, someone said singing along, others said laughing and smiling. And, again, I don't want to, I don't know, I don't want to comment too much on it, but I'm not having that. Do you know what I mean? Like, these fans are paying good money, and I understand he's a man under pressure. And to be fair to the fans, once the players were on the pitch, there was a sort of rally from them of, supportive chants to try and, get us over the line. But I do still think there was sort of right for expressing their opinions. Given, like, my point is, it doesn't surprise me, and I think it's surprising it's taken this long for there to be even a hint of toxicity amongst the fans at home.
Yeah. I don't want to read too much into until we've seen more or heard more, because again, there's so much that goes on at pitch side as well. You don't necessarily know sometimes, like if he's smiling, for example, if he's reacting to the situation is dire, but also what else is being said to him by people around him, on the bench or at the sideline, by the officials or whatever's going on. Again, in opposition to how many thousands of people are just watching from afar. So I think it's, I'm gonna give the benefit of the doubt, because I just don't know. But it just felt, and in that moment though, there's an elation when we go 2-1 up. There's that elation of, come on, we've come from behind, we've got back into it, and then the way that second Palace goal that we spoke about, it just feels again like we've just thrown it all away.
It's just the same thing.
And it is the fact it's set pieces again.
But I just don't understand, Chris. I don't get it. Like, because if that happened last season, people wouldn't blame O'Neill or the coaching staff at all. It's just purely an individual error, and it's cost us. They'd have a go at the individual player. But how many more times?
Yeah, it's the fact it's so consistent now.
Yeah, and I don't want us to sound like a broken record as well, but how can they keep producing the same issues so consistently, and so like it's so glaringly obvious as well, much like many things have been this season. And I just, I can't believe it.
I was just praying and praying, like everyone. I was praying for a third goal for us, and then they go. Typically, Palace have a moment in the dying, minutes of the game when it all goes a bit pear shaped, and they put the ball in the net for a third time, and you just think this is. And when it was initially not given as a goal by the ref, I was confused. I didn't know what was happening, and then I realized he'd given like the free kick to Sarr. And then when they call VAR, knowing our luck with VAR, I have to say I was there. I was thinking it's going to be a goal. That's all I was thinking for a split moment. I was thinking this is going to be a goal because VAR hates us. It's going to be another loss to VAR. I was actually astounded it was not overturned.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was outstanding. I think it was one of those, if Anthony Taylor hadn't have blown up, VAR would have looked at it and not changed their decision.
True.
Because he did blow up, they looked at it and didn't change the decision. It's just a farce in general. Just switch the thing off. I don't understand.
But then think of Man City when they gave offside, and then VAR have stepped in and given it. So it's happened to us before, and in different circumstances, I know. But overturning does happen to us, and I'm like, this is just. I was the pessimist in me was like, this is it.
No, and rightly so. And you know what? I've seen a few fans say, and I don't agree with this, but I can understand it, where they were like, they almost borderline wanted it to go in, for something to be like, because if we were to have lost that game, which we did well to not, O'Neill was out. It's that simple. And I know, again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it's just how many times it's the same issue week in, week out. And I've been calling for O'Neill to be gone for some time now. And this really felt like, if we had lost that, especially in that manner, with it being a late goal, I just, one can only imagine the uproar that would have followed.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at the Southampton game now, thinking, because that is next, right? I'm looking at the fixtures.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, because that's now 10 games, right? That's 10 games without a win. A quarter of the season without a win. And bottom of the table. And I'm thinking, if we don't beat, not just draw, if we don't beat Southampton, surely that's the end.
Sorry, Chris, I just wanted to mention, it's a good job that, according to O'Neill, so this obviously is true, it's a good job that today against Palace wasn't a must-win game, and neither is Southampton. They're obviously not must-wins, obviously. No, I think it's ridiculous. I think they're going to keep him. He's just tied himself down to a hefty contract in the summer. So it's like that's why they're struggling to get rid of him. I don't know, but no other manager at any other club would survive this run of form.
No. I'm just thinking, as I said to Nathan, that in a chat, I think in an episode earlier this week when we were discussing the November fixtures, we're going, after that, we go get away to Fulham and then we're home to Bournemouth, who, beat Man City today, of all things.
Yeah,
but,
beat Arsenal as well before.
I think if we don't beat Southampton, I don't see how it's tenable. And then also after the Southampton game, there is an international break. So surely that is your window to make changes.
Personally, I'd do it now. But, I understand that's not going to happen. I'm just fed up. But no, it makes perfect sense. And one thing, whilst we're on the topic of O'Neill, that I want to draw your attention to is I mentioned in a previous episode this week of someone saying to me, not necessarily disagreeing, when they said, I was told that O'Neill is just a man full of excuses. Would you like to play the game of spin the wheel of the mystery excuse this week?
Before you do that, and before I share another fact with you before we close out. Let me just remind everyone, because we do have certain, things that we need to get out there into the ether so that you all are aware of wise choices to be made. Here at Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr. All right, well, just because I had to build up the anticipation to your moment, so go for it.
We'll spin the wheel, and this is the O'Neill quote. It's and this is about the Wolves dressing room. It's all of that dressing room has basically not played many games in the Premier League, and we're trying to help them learn on the toughest stage.
What?
What's he going on about? Out of the starting 11, the only one who wasn't there last season was Larson. Is he on about the substitutes? A few of them lacking experience, the likes of Rodrigo Gomez, maybe? I don't know. In all fairness, I don't have the original question that was asked to him, but I don't know what the context of that could be to make it make sense from his point of view. I don't get how any of that's... First of all, it's not true. Maybe it's the point that they haven't played together much, which again isn't really true.
No, and especially if you think of the likes of Dawson, Sarr, even Lamina, he's had a previous stint in the Premier League. There's not, and Cunha's been with us for a while now. Like all the key linchpins of this team are definitely not raw.
It just I don't know, Chris, to be honest with you. I can't even begin to think of what that might mean or what he's going on about. I simply just I don't know.
Well, if that's flabbergasting you enough, then just to make your make your day worse, let me just point out when we're talking about decisions to be made about Gary O'Neill going potentially after the Southampton game, because I don't like if we win it, then I think they'll keep sticking with it for a little bit. If we don't, then no, seriously,
I know.
Yeah, that's how I see it. Other people can disagree.
No,
that's just how I'm saying.
You're not wrong. It's just,
but right, because 18 teams have previously been winless in the Premier League after 10 matches. Okay, in the history of the Premier League.
I don't like where this is going.
Only 5 of these teams have managed to survive.
That's better than I thought.
Okay. Just to put that out there, none of them have been newly promoted sides.
Right.
Well. None of those 5.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. We've got a long way to go.
There is a long way to go. So I guess so. It's not impossible, and even with some of those teams winning today, we're still within touching distance, but it's getting further away already.
Yeah, really. It's really, really scary now.
Yeah.
It's genuinely really worrying. And my only issue I do have on the notion of, potentially a change of manager and that, push for survival being successful, is if we were to sack O'Neill before the next international break, as you suggested, who would you get in? I don't understand who on earth would want to join Wolves and work for Jeff Shee.
Well, that's the question. And maybe this is something we need to have going before that game, a wildcard Wednesday episode that is just like, who would manager options. It's got to be a discussion. That's an episode in itself.
Yeah.
I think, because that's a big topic. And I don't know the answer. I really don't, which is another reason they're probably holding on, because who else, like you say, is going to take the reins in the situation we're in, with the situation that the team in how they control, how the club manages the team right now. I don't mean the manager, I mean the club managing the squad.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a very big question. But I don't know where to go, and I feel like I don't know. I feel like you can hear it in me. I guess I'm a little bit exhausted, a little bit.
The hopes,
yeah.
And that's what I said about it being like a championship game. The whole atmosphere, I just felt, and this is the first time I've ever felt it in my time as a Wolves fan, which this is going off. I don't want to dwell on it too long, but I was saying to my dad before the game just how much the game's changed since I've been a season ticket holder there. Going on 10 years or so. But this is the first time that I felt like such a real disconnection, and just the energy's just drained. It's just fully drained out of me now. I
think the saddest thing is that every time you feel like there's a little bit of hope, like when we go 2-1 up, the hope is just extinguished by another silly mistake or something.
Yeah, and can I just add as well, because I can't believe this isn't something we've mentioned. I know you spoke with the Palace guys about it in the crossover episode, but this was a weakened Palace team. This was a Palace team without their best players, and we couldn't see out a victory against them.
Mm-hmm.
That's awful. There's just no dressing it up, no matter how hard you try, and I think that's what's so deflating about it.
Yeah, it's true. So yeah, we may sound fatigued, everyone, but I think it's kind of understandable given that, as I say, we're recording this on Saturday night after the game itself, and we are pretty much fatigued and exhausted from it all, like I'm sure many of you are or have been as well. So do you have any last words of wisdom, Will, before we call it a night?
Out of darkness cometh the light.
You stole my always stealing my lines. And on that bombshell, farewell everyone. We wish you an amazing week, hopefully better than we were experiencing so far. Take care.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.